Can we just shoot the shit for a little bit? There's so much going on in the world. Ugh. What's on my mind right now is the us versus them mentality. And I kind of hesitate to say this because I don't know if it only comes from Christianity. But, I've been hearing all we're at war. There's a war in the heavens. And it's good versus evil. Oh, brother. I don't talk a lot about politics, and I'm not going to talk about politics today. Don't worry. Several people make a comment. Please don't talk about politics to me. You're the only atheist that I follow that doesn't talk about politics. And yeah, don't worry. I'm not. I just had to cover, the recent thing, and I had to cover that, and so I did. But I didn't do it on my regular scheduled days. I keep those for talking about them Christians. Which, by the way, hello, my name's Timmy Gibson, former fundamental, evangelical, Bible thumping, tongue talking, Holy Ghost rolling pastor. Yeah, I was 30 years a pastor, 48 years an evangelical Christian, believing the Bible was literally true, every jot and tittle. Anyway, here's what's on my heart and mind today. It's getting old for me. Now been an atheist. Well, I've only been an atheist for maybe a few years, couple of years. Like I said, I'm not a Christian. I think in 2020, maybe 20. I have a podcast. I don't do it anymore, but I have a If you want to kind of follow my journey, the slow, gradual walking away from Christianity, just go to Spotify, put my name in there, and you can go back and hear me through it all. I started that podcast in 2020, and I think at that point I might have been just a progressive Christian. I think I would have said I was a follower of Jesus, and it wasn't too long after that I said I'm spiritual, not religious. So if my story interests you, if you're going through your own deconstruction process, walking away from religion, specifically the fundamental religion that I came from, I don't talk about other faiths because, I'm just not familiar with them, except, I always like to say they're all false. I mean, outside of that. And then, Mormonism, which I'm going to do a little bit on Mormonism because that's crazy. Mormonism is just nuts. It's like I think who is it? Sam Harris? Somebody, I forget who might have said. It might have been Christopher Hitchens. But how do we know Mormonism isn't true? Because it's just an offshoot of Christianity. And as a Christian, I thought Mormonism was nuts. Isn't that wild? That as a Christian, I thought Mormons were crazy for their beliefs. If anything, that was the kettle calling the pot black, as they say. It was like, they're all cults. They're all crazy. Not all Christians are crazy. Don't put words in my mouth. And I use that word crazy in a way of just like nutty, right? Believing something with zero evidence outside of the Bible, which is true of every religious faith. It's it's true because their holy book says it's true, right? Right? The Quran is the last and final word of God for Islam. Clearly, Islam is false. Again, they're all false. I'm no respecter of religions now that I'm atheist. When I was a Christian, I did, right? They're all false except for the one that I believe in. Funny. But yeah, I keep a journal, as you guys know, and I talk a lot about what I know, which is the fundamental evangelical flavor. But I've just, when I hear Christians say, we're at war, no, we're not. No, we're not. Not in that sense. Now, are we at competing ideologies, but not war as Christians are taught. There's not a war in the heavens. This isn't God versus the devil, right? And what I used to believe and what Christians believe is, as a Christian, clearly I'm on God's side. Right, so Christians think they're on the side of God, and anyone who doesn't believe like they do is on the side of the devil. Again, the us and them. It's just absolutely, it's asinine. It really is cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs to believe that there's some war in the heavens. There is no war in the heavens. There is no God versus the devil. There is no God. There is no devil. This is not true. And this is all just personalities and cults, belief system, ideologies. This is what I believe and I think I'm right. And anybody that disagrees with me is wrong and they should, it's just ridiculous. And in our culture right now, coming from the top, here's the truth. Here's the truth. You ready for the truth? There are good people over there, and there are good people over there. I think most of us in the real world live here, right? Somewhere in the middle. And, we all agree on way more, except for the nutballs. Clearly, a lot of people have been radicalized religiously, okay? And in a lot of other ways, they just get radicalized. It's like conspiracy theories. As you guys know, I don't, at least that I know of, I don't follow any conspiracy theories. And I'm not just talking about the ones like, Elvis is still alive, the earth is flat, and whatever. Obviously, they're fun and entertaining, and it's fun when people talk about them. It's fun. It's fiction. It's like a novel. It's interesting, right? But so many conspiracy theories are out there that you have to be radicalized to really believe them. Because if you're not in that cult, you look at it and you just go, well, of course that's not true. That's just nutty to believe that. That's just nuts. And yet you can find people online who 100% believe it and think that, there's some secret cabal and they're running the... Here's the thing, guys. Obviously, you do you, boo. Believe what you want. Think what you want. I'm personally not into conspiracy theories in any real sense. I'm into conspiracy theories as they're fun. They're funny to think about. It's fun to make fun of people who believe in conspiracy theories. Back when I was single, I dated a few women who were way conspiracy theorist. I mean, off the charts nuts, right? Believing in things like, remember, I don't know if you followed any of the conspiracy theories, which I didn't really become aware of outside of the Elvis is still alive, some of the more, we didn't really land on the moon and like those kind of conspiracy theories, which, maybe, whatever, cuss and discuss below. Let me know what conspiracy theory you think is true. And the biggest conspiracy theory of all is Christianity or religion in general, that there is some kind of kind, caring, loving God that's watching over us and listening to us and answering our prayers. So that's just clearly not true. But back to the us and them. Christianity is And can I just say this, Christian, you're not being persecuted for your faith. You're just not. Now, I know that you think you are, but you're not. You're just not. You're delusional. You've been radicalized. You've been led to believe something that's just not true, and you believe it to be wholeheartedly true. Therefore, you think you're seeing things that you're not seeing. And we know this by, God does answer prayer. I've seen miracles. No, you actually haven't, right? Have you ever seen God grow a limb on someone like that had no limb, like they were an amputee, and that they actually grew an arm? Well, no, of course you haven't, because that doesn't happen. Ever. Never. That's never, ever, ever happened. And what you'll see and what you'll hear is, well, I was at a conference one time and this guy walked up and he walked up there with a limp, and then the preacher prayed that one leg would grow, and then he walked off the stage without a limp. It's not real. It's just not real. It's absolutely not happening. It's just not. And so, I'm always amazed at how many people will claim that God is doing things and he's not. There is no God. So there you go. But there are no miracles happening. Right? No blind eyes are opening. No one's walking on water. No one's growing limbs. No one's been healed of Down syndrome. No one's been healed of Alzheimer's, right? Outside of medical, or, I've even heard THC helps with seizures and different things, right? That's not demon possession, right? That's not, you didn't pray and then it rained. Maybe you did pray and it rained, but guess what? Had you not prayed, it still would have rained. I forget what that's called, like the cause and effect. It's like I asked for something and then it happened, and people think God answered my prayers. No, like it's just an absolute no, that's not what happened at all. Had you not prayed, that thing would have happened anyway. Like that's the world. Because if it was true, then every time people prayed and asked for a certain thing, it would happen right then, right? It wouldn't be happening to atheists and also Hindus and also Muslims and also Mormons and also Jehovah's Witnesses and also Christians, and right? If it was actually something that was really, really true, then it would be true, and you could prove it, and Christians could say, watch this. I'll pray this. I pray it and it happens. That's not happening. Okay. But the polarization I think it comes from Christianity. I was never more polarized in my life as I was as a Christian. It was me and those that believed like me against all those who don't believe, or those of other faith. It's my job to preach the gospel to all those that don't believe it, right? And you even wanted to convert people from other faiths. I remember some missions trips that I went on, and we encountered people of other religious faiths, and we were trying to get them to leave their cultural heritage and their beliefs about a supernatural, leave all of that and come follow the one true God. So I just wanted to shoot the shit with you because this stuff's just on my mind. I find it. I don't know if for, like, I started up this show with saying that Christianity, that's us and them, the us versus them comes from Christianity. I think it's a part of culture, because you see that in politics too, right? The other side's the enemy, and both sides think that about the other side. it's just, like I said, it's just cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. But in my life, born in 1969, I can remember all through the years. And I thought, Christianity is definitely tied to a particular political party for the most part, not across the board, but for the most part. And in fact, when I was a Christian, I didn't think you could be a part of the other political party and be a Christian. You talk about, when you think about Judas, who was really a political, talking about Judas from the Bible, the one that betrayed Jesus for 30 pieces of silver, that story. A lot of people don't know that Judas was a zealot. He was a very politically minded a person, according to Scripture. And part of what Judas's problem is that he wanted Jesus to overthrow the government and seize control and all of that. And so he didn't really like Jesus's more passive way, turning the other cheek and loving your enemies and all the stuff that Jesus taught. Those things were really bothersome to Judas. So really, I think Judas was probably more politically motivated. And even whenever you see, Constantine making Christianity the religion of the state, I guess, or religion or whatever, that was politically motivated. Now, I'm not an expert in this stuff. I'm really not. You can go research and find this stuff out for yourself. I'm digging back into my Bible school days and some of the things I remember hearing. But that was really more of a political move. Now, whether Constantine was actually a Christian or not, I clearly don't know, nor do you. No one really knows. We weren't there to know if he was, really actually believed it. If it was more of a power move, if it was more of a smart move, right? You see that now. People saying that they align with Christianity and they don't even know how to hold a Bible right. They don't even know, they've never cracked the Bible ever. They don't know anything about the Bible. Oh my. So yeah, I just wrote some of this stuff down in my journal, just thinking about how really divisive and how effed up in the head, especially the extreme Christians, the evangelical types, the ones that just think that they, God's law is above every law, And so, like, if God says it, like, do this, those radicalized nutballs will feel like they're doing the work of the Lord by breaking the law and doing stupid, moronic things in the name of God. Like, that gives them some pass, kind of like, when Abraham, like Christopher Hitchens says, Abraham asked his son Isaac to go on a long, gloomy walk. Right? If Christian, I guess I should ask you, if you felt like God spoke to you and told you to sacrifice your son or daughter, if you have one, like, would you do that? Right? To save their soul. Like, you're a crazy person if so. Like, if you say yes, well, you're crazy. Like 100%. You should check yourself in, like, now. Call some of your family and get yourself some help, which is what I think is so many people online. I did address this in one of my other shows. you can't live your life online. That's what will twist your mind. You can't, when you live life in an echo chamber and you're getting your news and all everything from news, or getting everything that you believe from online groups, yeah, it's gonna you're it's gonna make you cuckoo. I mean, clearly, right? Just look around. Yeah, I goodness gracious, uh, the, religion is not all, not all, but so much of religion, specifically the evangelicals, they are, just a fry short of a happy meal. I mean, in the sense of how they view the world and how they see everything. And I know this because that was me, right? Anytime I got a cold or any kind of anything, I thought it was an attack of the devil. No, it's an attack of the germs. It's just an attack of life, right? And going back to what I say so often is Christians shouldn't have that, right? That shouldn't be like, Christians shouldn't have that if they really had the ultimate all powerful one true God, which there isn't one. But just again, playing along with what I used to believe, then you shouldn't be sick. You shouldn't be poor. You shouldn't be addicted. You shouldn't, like, you've you've been made new, right? I mean, come on. All things have passed away, and behold, all things become new. Like, all the old stuff, the old wineskins are gone. You got new wineskins, and it's supposed to be new, and your mind should be renewed. Now, I know that the renewing of the mind is something that we should all do, and especially you Christians. That's a verse that Christians use all the time, and I'm thinking to myself, yeah, you should really take that to heart. Renew your mind into reality, and stop thinking that there's a war between good and evil in the heavenly realm, and that God is warring against the devil, because that's just not happening. That's not going on. Now, we war against each other. We hate. We love. We get violent. Like, we do evil things as people, and it's been that way since the dawn of man. This has been what it's been like, forever. Um, First we fought with our fists, and then it was sticks and stones, and then it was spears, and then it was swords, and then it was cannons and guns, and here we are today. Way more civilized. Throw any of us back into, I don't know, 10,000 years ago, or whatever, it would be crazy, right? Crazy. You couldn't, there was no going to the grocery store to pick up some eggs and a steak, right? You had to go out and get it. You had to go out and hunt it, and your life was in jeopardy when you would go do that. Yeah, if there was a God that set it all up and did all that, then it wouldn't have been like that. It would have been civilized from the beginning, or more civilized. Um, but it's the opposite. We were less civilized, and we become more civilized. And I think there's a whole book written about it. That the world, as bad as it can seem, which how you view the world comes from what you watch and what you listen to. If you're only listening to all the crazy stuff, you'll be like people I know, people in my family that like they don't get out, they hardly ever get out because they're afraid of being attacked. And what's funny is I was having a conversation with some Christians the other day, a couple people, and they were talking about, I was telling them I was going to go somewhere, and they're like, "Oh, be careful, there's, this stuff." And I was like, "Have you ever been attacked?" And they're like, "Well, no." I'm like, "You've never been attacked?" "No." "Have you ever been?" "No." "Have you ever been robbed?" "No," but I'm like, okay. Yes, that stuff happens. It's rare in the scope of, right? Like in the scope of life. Even me watching all the forensic files and all that, it definitely, I can tell sometimes, I'm a little bit more like someone following me. You know what I mean? Like it's like, someone following me, and who's that outside? What's going on? I realize, I know that comes from watching and reading mysteries and all that kind of stuff. But those things are very rare, right? It is. It's just rare that kind of stuff happens. It does happen. And it's, again, no respecter of persons, right? Things like that happen to Christians, Muslims, Hindus, Buddhists, everybody, right? No matter what you believe, those things can happen, right? We just celebrated the memory of 9/11, right? There were no religious people that made it out alive. Now that would have been something, right? Like if every single Bible believing Christian had escaped that horrific tragedy, that horrific attack, that would be something to look at. Like that would be curious. Anyway, back to the us and them shit. I love some of my Christian friends. I mean, I love all my friends, but I love my Christian friends. I love my liberal friends. I love my Republican friends. I love my whatever. Like I love people. I really don't care what they believe. If they're good people, I don't care how they vote. And I know some of you are atheists, and you have your thoughts too. Start your own YouTube channel and tell everybody what you think. Go ahead. That's what I'm doing. I've always been a person of peace. I just have. But I can, if I'm honest, right? If I'm going to tell you the truth of what I remember from being an evangelical, I was definitely more of an us and them. It was me against the devil, because I was a part of the righteous God, right? And so clearly I thought that I was a tool of God. I was a tool. I was a tool of God to win the lost, to save people from an eternal hell. And it was really, anything that ever came down the pike, I would label it, I'm being persecuted because of my faith in God. The devil is coming after me. The devil wants to, and if it's not that, well, then God's testing me to strengthen my faith. So I was way more polarized. I had a way more, I know I'm not using proper grammar here, but, I was just more us and them. I was more divisive and dividing then as a Christian. Now I know some Christians aren't, and that's great. Like I said, I've said this millions and millions of times. I have a lot of good Christian friends. They're cool. Obviously, we don't share a belief in God, um, but we share such a common belief in being a good dude, being good people, you know. Um, and I don't have a problem with people. I'm not a very I know my videos might seem different than this, but like I've said so many times, I share this on my YouTube channel because it's what I do on my YouTube channel, you know. But in person, I'm not contentious. You know, if someone, which they do often, when people talk about faith or the new church they're going to, or God's speaking to them about this or whatever, I will be curious. I ask questions, um, but I don't try to fight with them. I don't say, you're wrong. That's not true. You know, I'm just not a contentious person. And I don't feel, I feel less contentious now. Now I'm just like, live and let live. You know, be a good person. Treat people with respect, regardless of what they believe. I just don't care. Like, I'm not gonna treat anyone different based upon their religious beliefs. I'm gonna be constant. You know what I mean? Like, my neighbors are super religious, and religious people can't not talk about it. And they were talking about it, and I think the only thing I said is, I was a preacher for 30 years. And they said, oh. I didn't add that I'm atheist now. I think that stuff's a bunch of bullshit. Like, I didn't add that in there. If they'd asked, I'll tell people. If they ask, I will gladly share if they're just curious. But yeah, I'm not going to, like, I didn't go through my Facebook and start deleting anybody that was posting a Bible verse. I'm going to delete them. I don't get into wars online. I don't even do it here. I mean, I get a lot of wingnut, wacky comments, and yeah, I mean, you're comment away. You say what is your truth, but I don't have to believe it. I don't have to agree with you, and I don't need people to agree with me. Yeah, I've watched, unfortunately, because of all the news and all the stuff is just going around like crazy right now. I've watched more news than I care to watch, and I've seen more commentary on all the crap than I've ever wanted. And it's always, it just depends. It depends on what's going on. You know, it's like, on to the next thing. I mean, in a couple weeks there'll be some other thing that people are going to be up in arms about. There's always something, right? I mean, come on. There's always something for people to just get all pissy and get their panties in a wad over and get all whatever and just want to start attacking people and being weird. Uh, I mean, do your part. Like, if this stuff's that important to you, then get involved, try to get in there, change policy, do whatever, make things better. I mean, hey, listen, I think one thing that we could all agree, I at least hope so. I would think one thing we all agree on is that we all want things to be better, right? I have kids. Like, I want the world to be a better place for my kids, a safe place. And, you know, right? Like, I think we can all agree on whether you believe in God and Jesus or you don't, whether you worship the spaghetti monster or one of the hundreds of Hindu gods or whatever. I think we all can agree we want to live in a affordable, safe world. Yeah, all the fighting stuff. I don't know. I don't get it. Because as an atheist, I'm not at war with Christians. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, fine. Believe that Noah built an ark and put 2 of every animal on that ark, including dinosaurs. Right? I mean, believe it if you will. That's fine. If that's something you want to believe in, like, you sure shouldn't be making fun of people that believe the earth is flat. You shouldn't be making fun of people that believe in the tooth fairy. I mean, you surely shouldn't be believing in people that believe in Mother Earth. I mean, hello, like, you're believing nutty things too. So, like, for me, I treat them all as nutty for the most part, right? Like, especially the fundamentals, the ones that all of us struggle with. And yet, even those folks, I don't wish them any harm. I don't. I really don't. I don't wish them any harm. I just don't. I will make fun of their beliefs forever. For as long as I'm here, that's what I'm going to do. But you are free to believe things without evidence if you want to. And I just am not going to do it. I'm just not going to do it. And I'm not going to hate people. I'm just not. Cuss and discuss below. Yeah. Don't hate nobody. I mean, for real. Come on. You know what I mean? For real. You can hate maybe your own past, hate certain situations, hate people that hurt you or whatever. I mean, whatever. But, I don't think hate's a good thing, I don't know. Those are just my thoughts, y'all. It's just what I think. It's just how I see it. It's just how I live. And you don't need to agree with me for me to be respectful. Cuss and discuss below. Like, subscribe, do all the stuff. Don't forget, I have a Facebook group, Timmy's Deconstruction Community. Join it. Peace.